I'm going to take a Rambler down today to Jeff's house. He's a guy that's been restoring or building, whatever you call it, 54 Studebaker Commander. I gave him the engine that came out of this Rambler, and that's actually the engine that Missy and Kevin had up in Maine. They're a couple of, my brother and sister-in-law from up there. They run a farm. Good people. I got a video of me hanging out with them with the rat rod before I left Maine. Anyway, I put a coat of that package patina on this yesterday. I'm not finished doing that, but I'm finished enough for today. I told Jeff I was coming today, so I'm going to bring it just like it is. Kind of get a chance to see what she looks like out in the sunlight. I'm pretty sure I did a fairly decent job on the back here, but the sides I expect are still going to look rough because they need another coat on them. And there's places I'm going to need a little bit more on, like you can see a little bit on the hood. It's just above freezing degrees, and I don't know how she'll carry. Some days she just starts right up. Some days I have to pump her a little bit. But we'll see what today's going to be like. Just sit y'all up on the dash here. The joint. Start her right up. It looks good out over that shiny hood. Look at that. I could put y'all out of here and let you watch from that angle. I'm going to be running over to Jeff's house. I used to make this run on Fridays back, it's probably more than a year ago. There was a guy that lived over here and had a bunch of Model A's. And we went over and I did some videos over at his house with his Model A's. He had a Corvette one time he was working on. It wasn't his. He's a really nice guy. He used to work on people's car for free just because he was a really nice guy. You know, he was retired and didn't need the money, and he's very interested in old cars, especially Model A's. So he had a Model A, and he had some friends that had some, and they'd bring them to him, and he'd work on their Model A's. Well, he died. I mean, he found out he had cancer, and just in a very short time died from it. And so that group is kind of ongoing at different people's places. You know, David had a great big barn you could park a whole bunch of cars in, and everything was just organized to perfection. And, you know, the whole thing was like a museum. You had, you know, like Daisy BB guns in it, and all kind of different things, you know, interesting, useful things hanging on the wall. But anyway, I met Jeff before I met David. I actually met David because Jeff introduced him to me. But Jeff is the guy that has the 62 Studebaker, the red and white one with the Vents. Beautiful car. It's all stock and everything. Got the Studebaker engine and everything still in it. And he also had like a Plymouth, I think it's a 39 Plymouth sedan. It's for sale. It's a really nice car. But he bought a 54 Studebaker Commander, and it was just it had the original engine, original running gear, totally original, but totally, you know, kind of completely barn find kind of thing, you know, just hadn't been cranked in 25, 30 years, who knows, and all that, you know. Anyway, he brought it home, stripped it down to the metal, took the engine, transmission, got rid of that. I gave him the engine. I had a 350 Chevy engine that I got from Missy and Kevin up in Maine. That's my brother and sister-in-law up there, and it came out of a truck that they had, and they sold that truck to a friend of theirs, and he junked the truck but pulled the motor out, and I bought the motor from him. And it was what I would call a tired motor. You know, it probably had a few, 150,000 miles or something, which is a lot for a, stock Chevy engine. And he sold it to me, and I put it in this Rambler, and I drove it that way for years. Gave it to Josh. Josh drove it down to South Carolina, painted this car and did body work on it and all that. And then he gave the car back to me. And in the meantime, Todd rebuilt the engine that originally came out of this car, and I swapped something to Todd that got that motor back when he decided that he didn't really want to build hot rods. And then when I pulled the motor out of this one, which is Missy and Kevin's, we used to call that truck was called the House Calls, was the name of their truck, because they used to make house calls. They did construction work and carpentry and stuff. And so that was the heart of house calls, is what we called that engine. Well, I gave that engine to Jeff. It was running 350, needed to be rebuilt, and he took it and had a guy, had an engine shop rebuild it and everything. Put it in that Studebaker. I don't know, it's got some kind of transmission, probably a R400 or something like that on it. But I haven't seen it. I've heard it run, but he's had it painted since last time I was over there. And, I hadn't been down there since before David died and all that. So, and the last time I drove this one down here was when I had that engine that overheated, and the reason it was overheated is because of some mechanical thing that hadn't been done exactly right that I won't go into. But the bottom line is, I built another engine and I wasn't happy with it, and I wound up buying a little Chevy 283 that someone had built and had it running in a 55 Chevy, and it turned out it was a 1957 Chevy 283 two-barrel, and that's what I got in here right now, this stock 57 Chevy two-barrel. Anyway, I'm going over today to catch up with Jeff, see how his Studebaker is doing, see how he's doing. I'll shoot some videos of that. But also just to drive this car. This car hadn't been out on the road much since I put the engine in it. And you always want to get a car out and drive it on the road, because then you can kind of get the feel for how it does and how it's going to do, and if any problems are going to show up and things like that. So the best thing you can do is take them out and drive them, which is what I'm doing here. And to make some progress notes on this here, I've got a couple of different radio CD player type things figured out that I'm probably going to wind up putting a radio in this one, because this is a nice quiet car. It's quiet enough where if I had a radio I could hear the music, and I've got some Buddy Holly CDs and some Patsy Cline American Graffiti CDs, and a lot of stuff like that. So kind of looking forward to having a CD player in here, so when I go driving I can rave on with Buddy Holly and all that. But anyway, that's what we're up to, and that's where we're going. I'm going to sit y'all up here. I can turn the camera like this, and then you can look out over that shiny hood. If you were watching my videos, you saw me yesterday putting Pappy's patina on the hood, and I'm in the process of coating the whole car down with Pappy's patina. So this is what that shiny hood looks like going down the road, and this is a pretty good road to make a driving video on, because it's a nice road with a lot of curves and curls in it and all that. So if I wanted to
honk around on the gear, drop it down into first gear, second gear, and then wind it around the curves, I could. But right now, I'm at the point where I'm just going to ease along with it and just make sure she's doing good before I start banging on it, being rough with it. The heater's on and it's working. It's working pretty good. I'm getting warmed up in here. I don't have the heater fan on, so I'd say it's sucking in enough heat to kind of warm the car up. It's probably in the 30s outside, 30, maybe in the high 30s by now. So hey, that's where we're at. And if I wanted to honk around on the gears like this, yeah, I could do some of this. I could do some of this stuff like right here.